Hello again from Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin, broadcasting from Rigel Studios here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related politics, and self-defense. The Fired Up is on my website, Fired Up with Bob Irwin, as well as the American Guns and Glory Network, YouTube, and numerous other media. If your local internet provider does not carry Fired Up, ask them to do just that. A new show is posted every Thursday around 5 p.m. Pacific Time. The audio feed is broadcast for radio listeners Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. Check out KELY1230.com for a station in your part of Nevada. If you have questions or comments, send an email to me at bob@firedupmail.com. That's bob@firedupmail.com. Or leave a message on my office recorder, which is 702-257-1060. That's 702-257-1060. If you don't leave a message, I can't call you back. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms each week in the United States. Rarely, truthfully, are fully covered by mainstream media. I always select a few for each show for my listeners' education. Most are good shootings, some are questionable, some are just plain wrong, but all are educational for those of you that keep a defensive firearm in your home or carry one for self-defense in your vehicle or on the street. Individual incidents are generally adjudicated under local law, so the advice given here might not apply in the area where you live. Advice from a local gun-savvy defense attorney is always recommended. Gun-savvy is the key issue there. Stories are often paraphrased by me for clarity by translating from police jargon, lawyer speak, or regional accents into more standard American English. Incidents are as reported, but the names of the individuals involved are always deleted. The identification of the cops, the lawyers, and the media are generally used. This first story comes from KGO. It's ABC 7 News. A journalist named Dion Lim reported October 18, 2020 in San Francisco, California. The co-owner of a popular San Francisco Chinatown business is being hailed by his colleagues after jumping in to stop an assault on a tourist from escalating. The incident happened Saturday afternoon outside Chinatown's iconic Golden Gate Fortune Cookie Factory. I like that. A man in a black sweatshirt singles out one of about a dozen tourists and attacks. The guy just punched real quick, and he did the first punch real hard, said the co-owner of the business that's been in operation there since 1962. He recounted the turn of events. The aggressor asked, "Why did you push me?" The aggressor said, "Because you stared at me 2 blocks away." What makes this story remarkable is what unfolded next. The co-owner immediately steps in after the shove and lifts up his shirt to reveal he's carrying a firearm. "I have a concealed carry and I will need it to protect my business," he told the media. Just the sight of the gun is enough for the man in the black sweatshirt to leave. He was scared and he didn't want to go any further. A group of business owners in Chinatown is taking matters into their own hands after 2 violent attacks and what feels to them like a constant stream of break-ins and crime. Tourism in Chinatown was down 35% before the pandemic. Once COVID-19 hit, the business went down in some areas as much as 90%. While some tourists are coming back, as ABC 7 witnessed Saturday night, the co-owner can't afford for incidents that scare visitors away. People will come here and they'll have a bad impression and blame the Chinese community. The businessman decided not to file a police report as he was afraid it would go nowhere. So he's choosing instead to tell his story to send a message to local leaders. Not to defund the police, but to reform the police. Recognize them, don't take away their resources. Our community needs the resources. Despite his staff calling him a hero for de-escalating the situation so calmly, the co-owner insists he is not a hero. I'm just doing my job to protect my family, my business, my people, and my guests. Comments here could be a lot, but I wonder how he was able to get a carry permit in San Francisco. I expect politicians there have a political policy whereby prominent business people are treated differently than regular residents. All left side local governments seem to have these systems in place. All across the country, businesses are arming to protect themselves when the radical looters are not controlled by law enforcement. Currently, Philadelphia and New York City are examples. Burning and unchecked looting is now happening every night. This is absolutely shameful that this goes on. Next story. This is from KLKN TV8, a journalist named Brent Bonfleur. A virtual ABC affiliate reported October 20th, 2020. October 20, 2020. In Lincoln, Nebraska, authorities are investigating after a woman reportedly shot an apparent burglar inside her home. The 32-year-old mother of three tells Channel 8 she was about to take a nap with her 3-year-old daughter when she heard someone in the house trying to open her bedroom door. The mother says the door is difficult to open. As the man attempted to get into the room, she hid in the closet with her young daughter. He sounded like an older man, she said. Once in the closet where her pistol was located, the woman says the man tried to open the closet door and was speaking aggressively to her. That's when she fired 2 shots through the closet door. The shots apparently caused the intruder to quickly flee. That'll usually do it. A law enforcement response, including members of the Lincoln Police Department and Lancaster County Sheriff's Office, swarmed the home near 94th and Fletcher around 3 p.m. Monday afternoon. Lancaster County Sheriff Terry Wagner said it doesn't appear the man was hit. He hasn't heard a lot of reports of someone showing up at a local hospital with a gunshot wound either. Officers armed with rifles and riot shields could be seen searching the area for a suspect. No arrests have been made. Apparently, no blood evidence was found at the scene, causing the sheriff to conclude the intruder was not hit. Standard advice in these situations, of course, is run, hide, and fight. First, call 911 and leave the phone off the hook. If you can escape out the back, that's the best option. Let the responding cops handle the problem. If that's not practical, hide and hopefully the cops will arrive before you are found. If the worst happens, defend yourself. The mother did this exactly right. We're going to break now for some notes from some of our friends and supporters. I'll be right back. Freestyle Martial Arts, located at Jones and Russell here in Las Vegas. You can reach them at 702-551-9009. That's 702-551-9009. CCS Gunsmithing. Chris Eifelt, the man who does all the NRA help, he's at 2216 South Rainbow Boulevard near Sahara. He can be reached at 702-365-1732. Once again, 702-365-1732. Jerry Creed, a trust attorney. If you have a firearms trust or need one, this is your guy. You can reach Jerry at 702-806-7777. That is 702-806-7777. CCW Maggie is found all over the internet. You can reach her by phone at 702-375-5900. That's 702-375-5900. All sorts of firearms training, ladies only classes. She is the best of the best. Call CCW Maggie. And we are back. The Chicago Sun-Times reported October 26, a 67-year-old local homeowner got a call from her neighbor around 11 in the morning. The neighbor alerted her that someone was breaking into her garage in the 7100 block of South Mozart Street in the Marquette Park on the southwest side of town. Hopefully, if you live in Chicago, you know where that is. According to the Chicago police spokeswoman, a lady named Sally Brown, the woman told investigators she went outside with a gun and found the man exiting a side door of the garage holding some of her belongings. She shot him in the chest. Authorities responded to her home and found the man lying unresponsive on the ground. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The deceased male was identified as a local 58-year-old by the Cook County Medical Examiner. The autopsy ruled his death a homicide. The homeowner complained of trouble breathing and was taken to Holy Cross Hospital. A police report did not mention if she is a licensed gun owner. Now, this is happening all over the place. Unfortunately, this 67-year-old homeowner, this incident is likely to cause her serious problems. We are seeing more and more of these cases. Given the dramatic rise in crime in major cities and pretty much everywhere else, lots of folks are obtaining firearms without any training or even basic knowledge of the legal issues involved in using deadly force. First, as regular viewers of this program know, this is clearly a property crime. Most of us understand that gunshots may only be employed when defending humans from serious physical injury or death. This is the worst case scenario. An unlawful shooting and a dead victim in arguably the most anti-gun city in America. Unless some other unknown facts change this, the legal defense here is almost an impossible task. We're going to break for a second. We'll be right back. My latest book, Self-Defense with Firearms, Use of Force in Nevada, is now available on Amazon Kindle for $4.95. You can download it now. It contains examples of dozens of shootings and pointing a firearm cases that I personally experienced in my 24 years in law enforcement, or where I testified in court or deposition as a firearm and use of force expert. The book is about the use of firearms in defense of yourself and others in my home state of Nevada. I have appeared as an expert witness in Nevada courts dozens of times, and that experience has shown me the necessity of putting pen to paper once again. Nevada state law as printed can be misleading to those of you who read it, as it is written in legal jargon, what I usually call lawyer speak. These statutes are also bent or even broken by the courts in their everyday decisions that we generally call case law. Those are rulings that say this or that statute does not apply in a particular incident and similar cases. That causes the law you are depending on when you make a decision to use your firearm only partially or not apply at all to your actions. Relevant Nevada statute numbers are included here and there, so readers may look up current wording on the Nevada State website. Teaching firearms in 28 law enforcement academies, including cadets from 26 different Nevada agencies, personally instructing over 30,000 concealed firearm permit students, and 20,000 private security officers, I've discovered a lot of commonalities in deadly force incidents. Less than 100 pages, this book offers advice that can save lives and costs of expensive defense lawyers to reduce your losses in the inevitable civil lawsuits that follow these incidents. Get a copy, learn how to avoid, prepare for, and react to life-threatening situations. Story number 4. The Monroe News Star, a journalist named Bonnie Bolden, reported October 19, 2020 in Monroe, Louisiana, that a few days earlier on October 11th at 10 in the evening, 3 men wearing hoodies and brandishing firearms arrived at a home in the 3700 block of Cherry Blossom Drive. A male resident refused to comply with their demands for cash. He was struck in the head with a gun several times. He yelled several times for the female resident who had fallen asleep. The woman woke up. She immediately grabbed her gun from underneath the mattress. She saw the male resident struggling with 2 unknown armed men. One was wearing a light gray hoodie. One was wearing a dark hoodie. She said the dark hoodie intruder pointed a gun at her. She fired multiple rounds and heard one intruder say, she hit me. She said the third male was standing in front of the doorway and appeared to be in shock. She said he ran away with the others. All 3 got into a silver Nissan Altima and left eastbound on Parkland Street. Around 10:25 p.m., the Monroe Police Department was alerted to a shooting victim at the St. Francis Medical Center. The emergency room staff told officers the 19-year-old told them he was hanging out on the east side of Monroe with friends when someone drove by shooting at them. The responding officer noticed his clothing matched the description of the home invasion. Monroe police interviewed him at the hospital. He said he and another man entered the home and demanded money at gunpoint. He said when the woman came into the living room, she fired 2 or 3 shots at them, and he noticed he was shot in the abdomen as he fled the residence. The second man who entered the home reportedly drove the injured intruder to the hospital and dropped him off at the emergency room. He said he doesn't know where the third man's name, only that he lives in West Monroe. All 3 were in custody within a few days and booked into the Oquachia Correctional Center for aggravated burglary. They remain in custody as of this report. Certainly a valid use of deadly force in most jurisdictions in America. The description of events by the perps and the intended victim matched pretty well. The reaction of the woman was fast and decisive. I can imagine the male victim yelling, "Oh, honey, we're being robbed. Could you come out here and shoot somebody?" I had to put that in. There are no reports at this time that the home was particularly targeted for any reason. Perhaps cameras, motion-activated lights would have moved these criminals to another location. Remember, the rule is always attempt to make your home the toughest target in the neighborhood. That works pretty well. Now we're going to break for a few more notes from some of our friends and supporters. I'll be right back for the last story. Don't go away. Attorney Donald J. Green, a common guest of mine on Fired Up. He can be reached at 702-409-8239. He specializes in gun case litigation. He is your man. Don Green, 702-409-8239. And Battlefield Vegas, my new kind of home for this show. They're on Circus Drive, directly behind the Circus Hotel and Casino. You can find them there with CCW classes and an amazing place for gun rentals, everything you could possibly imagine. check out, if you're in town as a tourist, check out battlefieldvegas.com. And story number 5. WSIL TV3 News reported October 23rd, 2020 in St. Louis, Missouri, police say a 14-year-old boy and 2 others approached a 26-year-old man on the front porch of his home. The 14-year-old allegedly pointed a gun at the man, who retrieved his own gun and shot the teenager in the leg. Police were called to the scene, found the wounded 14-year-old who was taken to a hospital for treatment. The other 2 suspects drove away in an SUV. The 26-year-old man was not injured. This story just brought to mind other things. It's an example of more children committing crimes. The difficulty in these is the question of shooting a 14-year-old. The obvious answer is the first rule is always don't get killed. Secondly, you should obey all the legal rules and policies about use of force. But if you are dead, it doesn't really matter. At least it doesn't matter to you. I worked on a case several years ago wherein a 14-year-old appeared to be an armed robber, was shot and killed by a store owner. Ultimately, the defense of brilliant Las Vegas attorneys Dominic Gentile and Paula Armani were successful in making a plea bargain arrangement. That story, when I talked to all the witnesses involved and everybody that was involved in the case, it really goes hard on the individuals who make this shooting. Because no matter how you try to understand what you did, you hurt a child or you killed a child. And that's not fair, but it leaves the shooters with just terrible issues. As I said, with this particular case, they were able to work it out, and everybody went home with some degree of happiness. The individual involved in this shooting never wants to touch another gun again. That was part of the plea agreement, of course. They did not have any firearms for the next 5 years or something. But I don't think he's probably picked one up to this day. It's really tough on the people involved. You can check out my recent shows at firedupwithboberwin.com. It contains several dozen episodes. Please patronize our friends and supporters. I'll be back next week on my website, firedupwithboberwin.com, the American Guns and Glory Network, and numerous other websites, television, and radio stations. While watching any media, just click on subscribe, and new shows will be sent to your phone or computer automatically. My logo merchandise, hats, shirts, and books are available at Battlefield Vegas, just behind Circus Circus on the Strip. If you are ever in Las Vegas, Battlefield Vegas is a must-see attraction. You can shoot a minigun or any of hundreds of firearms, or even crush a car with an Abrams tank at their associated outdoor facility. Transportation is provided. You can contact them at info@battlefieldvegas.com. Thank you so much for watching Fired Up. Don't forget to vote. We're having the election of the century the end of this week. Have a good evening. Thank you. My latest book, Self-Defense with Firearms, Use of Force in Nevada, is now available on Amazon Kindle for $4.95. You can download it now. It contains examples of dozens of shootings and pointing a firearm cases that I personally experienced in my 24 years in law enforcement, or where I testified in court or deposition as a firearm and use of force expert. The book is about the use of firearms in defense of yourself and others in my home state of Nevada. I have appeared as an expert witness in Nevada courts dozens of times, and that experience has shown me the necessity of putting pen to paper once again. Nevada state law as printed can be misleading to those of you who read it, as it is written in legal jargon, what I usually call lawyer speak. These statutes are also bent or even broken by the courts in their everyday decisions that we generally call case law. Those are rulings that say this or that statute does not apply in a particular incident and similar cases. That causes the law you are depending on when you make a decision to use your firearm only partially or not apply at all to your actions. Relevant Nevada statute numbers are included here and there, so readers may look up current wording on the Nevada State website. Teaching firearms in 28 law enforcement academies, including cadets from 26 different Nevada agencies, personally instructing over 30,000 concealed firearm permit students and 20,000 private security officers, I've discovered a lot of commonalities in deadly force incidents. Less than 100 pages, this book offers advice that can save lives and costs of expensive defense lawyers to reduce your losses in the inevitable civil lawsuits that follow these incidents. Get a copy, learn how to avoid, prepare for, and react to life-threatening situations. One more thing after we close the show, and we've got a little bit of time left, so here I am again. Two things. One, I really don't like that commercial because I can't come back. I'm doing a commercial like Mike Lindell and his pillows that I'm, I can't sit on and look at the camera and say, I'm really smart, you should do this. But we got to run the commercial because it's on Amazon Kindle and you can get one, and it would really help in some cases, particularly in that case of the woman that I talked about earlier that just shot the guy for a property crime and her life is destroyed now. Secondly, I want to talk just for a moment about the election coming up. This show is being shown on Thursday. We've got the election coming up in like 4 days now. The Biden campaign and its supporters and groups and people have made no secret of the fact that they intend to come for your guns. Beto O'Rourke will be the gun czar. Biden has talked many times about no one should have weapons of war on the street, and no one should have a clip that holds 100 bullets or whatever his wording is. Every magazine should hold no more than 10 rounds if they're detachable. He'd rather have no more than 7. Even revolvers should hold no more than 6 rounds. And to institute what he calls a buyback, which means you turn your gun into the government and they give you what they say it's worth. And if you don't like the price, you can go to a committee of experts to tell you that you are what the price is going to be. But there's no appeal from the appeal, the way their statements have been. If you vote for the Biden group, you are giving up your guns. The guns you keep for self-defense will become unlawful. You will not be allowed to defend yourself or your family, period. We cannot let that happen. If you haven't voted already, vote. If there's a way in your state or jurisdiction or area to change your vote, find out. If you'd voted for Biden's group, see if you can change it, or convince somebody else that didn't vote to go vote against Biden for Trump and all the Republicans, so you at least will negate your vote that was mistakenly taking your guns away. Do not let the left side take your guns. Our very nation is at stake. Your ability to defend your family is up for election this week. We'll see you next week with the results, huh?